Admiral, we're grateful for your time tonight. You've advised several operations in Afghanistan over the last 2 decades. What should the U.S. be doing right now?
We've got a tactical challenge in front of us, which you illustrated perfectly with the reporting, which is create order out of chaos at the airport, create a perimeter, get as many tens of thousands of U.S. citizens and allies out. Tactical challenge. Next, operational challenge. Now that we have effectively left Afghanistan, where do we find our intelligence? How do we have the eyes and ears on the ground? I don't envy the director of the CIA trying to figure that out. So we have an operational challenge to see whether or not the Taliban come back in numbers with al-Qaeda. And then third and finally, Carl, we have a strategic challenge, which is convincing our allies that we're still reliable despite the scenes that they're observing here today. A lot of work ahead for the Biden team.
Back in April, Admiral, on this NewsHour, you warned that the U.S. should keep at least a small number of troops because you were concerned that pulling them out would cause a collapse in Afghan security forces. Clearly, that's what happened. Is it too little, too late to maintain any kind of influence?
Unfortunately, it is. And so we ought to say, look, good decision, bad decision. Look, it's a done decision. We're leaving. So the question is, how do you mitigate as you go forward? We've got to work with our allies and partners who are remaining. We're going to have to, as distasteful as it is, work with the Taliban, try and encourage them to show us they can be better than they were. And we're going to have to use our over-the-horizon capability, our satellites, our drones, to monitor what's going on if we need to come back in and take out al-Qaeda again. Let's hope we don't get to that point, Carl.
Today, the White House, Admiral, admitted that a, quote, fair amount of hardware, mostly arms and equipment, is now in the Taliban's control. How much does that concern you?
It concerns me a fair amount, I guess, not to pick up the phrase. But let's face it, the good news here is the Taliban have never demonstrated a desire to become a regional power, to try and subsume their natives, their neighbors. I don't think that they're going to put that to much use other than using it against their own population, unfortunately. So it doesn't overly concern me. Again, the key now is how do we get eyes and ears in Afghanistan as we move our military out?
You raised the notion of having to go back in potentially one day. I wonder how likely you think that scenario is at the moment, and what would be the trigger that would create that need, that necessity once again?
Watch for the relationship between the Taliban and al-Qaeda, frankly. And let's face it, since those days when we went to Afghanistan originally to face this threat, Carl, radical jihad has metastasized around the world. It's in Africa, it's in Latin America, it's in parts of South Asia, as well as Afghanistan. So we've got to be mindful globally. But here in Afghanistan, the real concern is al-Qaeda. Look, the Taliban have said to us that they are Taliban 2.0. I'm not sure I buy into that, but let's see if they learn something from the last time they forged a partnership with al-Qaeda. They spent 20 years in the mountains of Pakistan as a result. Hopefully they're smart enough not to want to go back there.
Finally, today, the White House suggested that the president hasn't yet spoken to many world leaders about the Taliban's return. What is likely going through the minds of our global allies right now?
I think they're waiting for a call from President Biden. And I saw today he has spoken to our closest ally in that fight, and that was the United Kingdom. He spoke to Prime Minister Boris Johnson. I think you'll see over the next few days a real effort on the part of the administration to engage. Let's face it, the last couple of days were very rough. The president was in 24/7 working the internal issues. I think now we can take a breath. Things appear to be calming at the airport. I think the next step is for him to be reaching out to allies, partners, and friends around the world.
Admiral James Stavridis. Admiral, thanks so much for your time tonight.